is a presentation of the Oklahoma Sports Network.
Any other use of this telecast or any pictures, descriptions, or accounts of the game without the Oklahoma Sports Network's consent is prohibited. It may not be reproduced or retransmitted in any form, and the accounts and descriptions of this game may not be used without express written consent.
And good evening, everyone. And we're coming to you live from the outside the Middle City practice field, where the Bombers had another practice, getting ready for their game this week. My name is Jordan Ray. Great to be on the Oklahoma Sports Network. Of course, this is the Midwest City Coaches Show, and I have another week where I get to talk to Midwest City head coach Jaquez Washington. Real quick, of course, we want to thank our sponsors for the Midwest City Coaches Show. Intertwined Hearts Ministries, led by former Midwest City Bomber graduate Scott Young and his wife, also Midwest City graduate Alicia Young. Biblically based counseling they offer. They're over on Reno. Please, whether it's for your marriage or for just your personal life, give them a call. Intertwined Hearts Ministries, and also Toonie Buys Houses, led by Midwest City graduate Channing Chamberlain. Toonie Buys Houses, we buy and renovate homes in any condition. We lease and own or finance homes. And the number to contact, you can see right there, 405-931-3046. Okay, let's go ahead and talk Midwest City Bomber football. They played this past Friday against Carl Albert, came up short 40-8. Coach Washington, now that you've had a chance to look back at some more film of that game, how much of this was just, hey, Carl Albert is at a high level. They don't rebuild, they reload. They're talented. And how much of that was, hey, we could have played better. We made some mistakes.
I think anytime you play a team that's won a bunch of championships, they are going to be well coached. It is a next man up mentality there. But a lot of that stuff that happened out there on Fridays was some self-inflicted things. I mean, we dropped the ball in the backfield. That wasn't a play from anybody that was made from their team. We dropped a pass, which led into an interception. Great play by that kid. But if we catch the ball, we retain possession there. We misfit on a couple things, didn't tackle well, as great as we could in space. And so, it's a little combination of both. Good teams aren't going to let you, get away with mistakes, and, the results end up like Friday night's game if we play good teams and we do stuff like that.
So, first drive, I think Carl Albert showed they wanted to throw the ball. When they decided to throw the ball, they wanted to throw it short, a lot of short passes to the wide receivers like Jackson Webster and stuff. And you play defensive back and stuff. When you see that, is there ever a decision to adjust and take those passes away? Or because I figured that they probably wanted to lure you in and maybe at some point throw the deep ball, or how do you react to that?
For the coverages that we were in, it would be changing our technique and just having our eyes right and where they're supposed to be, kind of controlling pelling out to play the hot game. And, just learning curves. Everybody's learning out there on the field about, hey, you can take away this, even playing off with your eyes and your feet and, how you approach the quick game to put yourself in a better position to where, we're going to give up some access throws. We just want them to be at 5 yards and 4 yards, not 12 or 15 yards.
And then on defense, or second drive on defense, and I thought this was a backbreaker. They converted the third in about 20, I think, through a jump pass to the running back who was lined up at receiver. And, I mean, do you see that as that was just a really good play by them because you had defenders there, or do you have a different expectation for your defensive players on a kind of what was a kind of a jump ball like that?
Yeah, we got to get off the field on third and long. Anything over about 6 yards, we expect to get off the field, and we gave up a couple third and 25s. I will say that kid, Trayshawn Lee, new to the defensive back world, and kind of put himself in a position with his body to be exposed to a throw like that and a catch like that. But I will say this: we played Carl Albert last night, and as the game went on, he found himself in two of those situations again and corrected his technique, and both of them were incomplete passes. So, again, you just want to see stuff like that start to get corrected and built upon. And, unfortunately it happened Friday night to him, but, you're either losing or you're learning. So we're learning.
Yeah, you're referring to the JV game you played
Yes, sir.
against Carl Albert. So you did make some changes to your defensive backfield, also Lincoln King at safety. I think you moved some other players around. What led to some of those defensive changes? And, there was a lot of victories for your defense, too, in this game, even though they scored 40. A lot of that was because of field position, I thought, and different aspects of that. You got some stops on them. Also, how do you feel like some of the defensive changes went?
Just restructuring, seeing what we have personnel-wise and putting guys in places where they can succeed and play fast. So kind of put Lincoln at the middle safety part because he does so much on offense to, try to give him a breather on thinking. Added a couple safeties, added another linebacker, took a D lineman off the field. And so we're kind of in this hybrid thing to where we can build a front and build whatever we want. And, we just want to keep building on that, this technique and this scheme to just let our kids play fast. Because if we play fast, we know what we're doing. We're a pretty good football team.
On offense, we did see a lot of Lincoln King at quarterback, and it made sense to me because the most experienced part of Carl Albert's their defensive line, and they were bringing pressure. They did that last year against the best of 5A teams. So is the thought process with Lincoln, at least he can deal with that. He can still make a play when he gets a lot of pressure?
Just utilizing both quarterback skill set. We wanted to run a little bit QB run game, kind of take them into empty and get them off balance. Fortunately, those 40 guys did a good job up front at causing havoc and chaos. And, so I kind of got Lincoln in the backfield a couple times. But really just want to utilize both of them for their strengths, him and Valor. And, we understand we got two different quarterbacks. Lincoln can throw, Lincoln can run, he can move on the pass. Valor can complete quick game and move on the run and stuff and throw on the run. So, kind of just trying to see what our niche is offensively to give us the opportunity to continue to score.
I thought that you definitely missed Dominique Cochran out there from a kicking standpoint, and that did help Carl Albert a lot with field position when they did receive a punt or even the kickoff beginning of the game.
Mm-hmm.
How have you gone about addressing that, and how do you see your kicking game progressing going forward?
Trying out kickers. We got his little brother, Davion, who can kick, and Noah did a decent job on kickoffs for us, and Lincoln probably was just dog tired. He punted well to the end of the Piedmont game, and then probably was just dead tired to go back there and punt for this Carl Albert game from running around everywhere. So, just finding it to where we don't have to punt so much, and getting some first downs, and then we won't have that problem as much. And so, the kicking game is something that's a ever-evolving door. We not only lost a kicker and done, but we lost a starting offensive lineman. So it affected us in a bunch of areas.
Is there an update you can give us about him or Dominique? Or
he's improving.
Okay, good. At halftime again, so you're down. Do you take the similar approach to getting your team going in the second half to build on, having good habits and stuff like that, or was there anything different about halftime this time around?
No, always talking about habits, always talking about doing our job. I felt like going into the first half, I probably got on the defense a little harder than I needed to because of the poor field position that we were put in and the stops that they did have. They had some wonderful stops, but that 3rd and 27 was unacceptable. A couple plays, their first touchdown, it's not fitting right. The pin and pull, they ran to the field, and, we should have had a hat there to where he couldn't just bend the corner and keep turning. So for me, being the coach, the defensive guy, the defensive coordinator, is just I felt like there was 14 points we just gifted them. I think we had them in like a 3rd and 9 at that situation when they scored the first touchdown. And so situations like that is what I think about, and I just try to tell the kids, we can't do anything special. You don't need to do anything special. When you do special stuff, it's because you did your job, you're in the right place.
And then their running back, Elijah Matthews, obviously he's pretty good. When you face an exceptional running back like that and you'll definitely see that again when you play Dell City. What's the message to your team there as far as, hey, this guy's going to be extra tough or anything like that?
No, just tackle. Fit,
Yep.
tackle. We got to be great tacklers in open field. We can't arm tackle anybody. We got to bring our eyes and feet through thigh boards, and so just working tackling. We got to tackle better. And like I said, when you got an inexperienced team, some stuff that you're able to get away with in 9th grade and 8th grade, and you're able to just go push somebody down and all that stuff. You can't tackle good ball carriers, big thick ball carriers up high. You can't push them down. Like, they're going to run through contact. And so really just working on tackling. I think we're doing a good job right now. Held a couple drills a day with the DBs, and I'm liking our angles. I'm liking how we're approaching tackling right now.
In the third quarter, I think, and again, I mentioned Matthews because there was a touchdown run he scored early in the third, and after that your defense played really well, I thought, the rest of the second half. There was an interesting sequence where they had, I thought, what was 3rd and long, but the chain gain, I think, had 2nd down marked. And it was around that time you went to the midfield to talk to the refs. And I don't bring this up to question refs. I'm just curious what goes on in some of those situations. It seemed like, for all we could notice in the broadcast booth, is there's a difference in downs. It should have been 3rd down, clearly, and that's what was on the scoreboard. Was that part of the discussion, or was there something else you wanted to communicate to the referees?
Yeah, they had a miscommunication. I politely asked the guy on my sideline, like, hey, it's 3rd down, right? And, I'm thinking, he's going to say, yeah, the sticks is just wrong. And, he responded with, no, it's 2nd down. And I knew the sequence of plays that led up to that situation with the 2 penalties to start that drive on them. And then they hit a tunnel screen over there on their boundary to make it 2nd and 14. And they threw an incomplete pass up the hash on the left-hand side. And so that would have put it at 3rd down. But they were for sure that it was 2nd down. And I knew what it meant for us to get off the field at that point in time. And, so it was important to me. And so I wanted to relay that message to them that it was 3rd down.
And then one of the important things about Lincoln King as quarterback, the downside, is you don't have Lincoln King as wide receiver. But he started to, I think, find some wide receivers that he could feel comfortable with, including, and I apologize, I don't have his name, number 14, I believe.
Josiah Brown.
Josiah Brown, I think that was he caught the touchdown pass.
Yes, sir.
And talk about the wide receivers developing, especially when Lincoln King's playing quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, Josiah is a sophomore. He's a baby, man. He's a puppy, and he's
tall.
He's just learning this game. He's going to be a really good one. He's understanding how to use his length. He's working on his hand. He's working on his craft. And I was so happy he was rewarded, for his week of hard work this week in practice with a touchdown at the end of the game. You also got Davion Cochran out there, so Dominique's little brother, who's another baby. He's a puppy, a 10th grader. Out there, amongst. I mean, these are big boys, and so the speed of the game is different from what you're accustomed to in 9th grade. Mm-hmm. The physicality is different. You might have been able to catch a ball and be in open space in 9th grade and junior high versus on a varsity field versus a good team. You might catch. It might be contested catches that you have to catch. So Davion also had a big catch. Well over 30 yards. Earlier in the game on a corner ball. So those kids are going to continue to get better, play a lot of snaps of football. And it's kind of up to them to figure out, all the different nuances of the game. And, the game will eventually slow down for those two. And I think you'll see big things from those two.
Again, back to some of your defensive successes, or you mentioned the receivers there. Was there anyone else who, played a good game that, we may not have noticed?
I think Jalen Gardner-White and Sean Miller, we talked about the quick game, but they did do a decent job of getting the ball down. There wasn't a hitch that went for a touchdown. Sometimes, it might have carried them for about 2 or 3 yards after contact. But I think those two did a good job at corner. I think Latavian Peterson did a good job at safety, moving around to the safety position instead of the corner position and, kind of commanding and communicating out there at safety. And, we had Xavier Smith, who stepped up at linebacker, a guy with some length who runs around and plays hard. Ja'Cory did a good job. KB, Kenyon Brown, big basketball player, but, you know, he held his own out there at defensive end. That's another person you're going to see coming along and developing. Big kid out there, learning how to use his hands and use his length to get off blocks and create havoc, but he got in the backfield a couple times, had a TFL, you know, and, you know, Zante Sanders in the middle, just coming along, you know, kind of first years playing football, and, you know, he's out there at nose at a zero, you know, getting off double teams, and, you know, probably was accredited a sack on one of the plays. So, you know, I think it's a bunch of, you know, guys that are just learning how to play football, but at least they're playing hard. And if we can get them just, hey, this is your job now, can you execute that and then make the play when it comes to you, it's going to be a good defense.
And one more thing about the touchdown, I did appreciate how the crowd was still very excited about it.
Yes, sir.
Even though, you know, the game was out of hand at that point. And the players on the sideline seemed very happy about it. Could you speak about that, and then to the attitude the team has been able to have even when the game so far have not gone their way?
Yeah, you got to tip your cap to the crowd. They stayed and invested, stayed there. And I know the section kind of came from over here, you know, on this side of the deal, and they ended up realizing we scored. And you just hear this big roar and people coming down the bleachers, and then we get the 2-point conversion, so the excitement's up, and then we get the big hit, you know, leading up into that touchdown. You know, the crowd's still in tune, and the players are still in tune into the game. And I just think, you know, the kids, our mental fortitude is strengthening. Do we like losing? No. You know, Is there some grumblings on the sideline of upset players? Yes, and I would hope that's the case. But, you know, it's so what, now what mentality here. Like, all right, like, so what? Okay, this is the situation we're in. That's whether it's something that's good or bad. If we're up 41-8, you know, I would hope it's a so what, now what, because all that's important is the next snap, the moment, winning the moment.
All right, we'll take a quick break, and then we're going to talk about Midwest City's game this Thursday. Yes, you heard that right, Thursday. And we'll talk about their opponent and more right here on the Oklahoma Sports Network.
Last year, 35% of all auto accident deaths were rollovers. This is how you need our number in your phone.
This could be you!
Last year, 35% of all auto accident deaths were rollovers.
If you've been in a wreck, don't hesitate to call us.
This is how you need our number in your phone.
This could be you!
When you call our firm, you're going to get one of us, not some paralegal or office manager.
Most lawyers, they take more money than their clients. Most of the time, a lot more.
We don't, and we guarantee it.
All right, welcome back to the Midwest City Coaches Show on the Oklahoma Sports Network. Once again, brought to you by Toonie Buys Houses and by Intertwined Hearts Ministry. Okay, so, Coach, this is interesting today. We woke up this morning thinking that your game against PC West was going to be played this Friday on September 12th, and then we come to find out, nope, it's going to be played Thursday, September 11th, and I guess it's just one of those deals where you got to roll with the punches and stuff, but what was as far as getting your team ready and stuff, what's the reaction to, you know, now the game being played on the Thursday?
You know, kind of changes a lot. Kind of changes your weekly structure. Anytime you're going to play on a Thursday, you kind of want to slide your week and kind of morph some days into some stuff, you know, to make sure our kids' legs are fresh going into a game. And so, you know, kind of found out from you that we were playing. I didn't kind of find out. I found out from you that we were playing on Thursday.
Yes, that was strange.
Yeah, and, you know, for whatever reason that is, it's the situation we're in. The same thing I just said, so what, now what? And so kind of got to get our kids mentally prepared, you know, to play in 2 days, you know, versus when they thought they had 3. And so just, you know, kind of morphing practice into some today, more teaching, more, you know, a little bit of sprinting, a little bit of this and that, you know, to kind of try to save legs and get us prepared for Thursday.
Yeah, I'm glad we didn't have a situation where it's like 5:30 on a Thursday, you're finishing practice, and you get a phone call saying, "Where are you?" So, but that's avoided. However, still, it was short notice as far as finding it out. So again, it's about rolling with the punches. But as far as the Thursday game goes, were you used to that with Owasso? Like when I know they usually have Thursday games on fall break week. Did you play much on Thursdays other than that?
Just fall break.
Yeah. So how was practice different then? Now that you had to pivot.
We just pivoted, did a little bit more instructing and teaching mixed in with our, team sessions and full speed stuff. And so, made sure we spent some more time on special teams today because we usually get, 2 days of work, all 4 special teams phases. And, made sure we did a little more, instructing on job assignments and technique and stuff.
What can you tell us, if anything, and if it's nothing, I understand, but what can you tell us about the quarterback rotation going forward?
Oh, you're going to see both of them. I mean,
Okay.
It just depends on what situation we're in and what we're trying to do offensively. Like I said, Lincoln is a smart kid. He could play, in all areas. He could probably line up in the backfield also. And, just trying to get some situations where, Valor can be successful and, draw up some plays where he can do those things. And, really, Taim Kemp is another kid, who's showed up and lit it up on Mondays, who could do some things special with the ball in his hands. And so, we're just, we're open to anything that's going to help this team be successful and put points on the board.
And when it comes to your opponent, PC West, they obviously had a rough showing their last game, very rough against PCO, another for a city rival for them. When I was looking at the roster, I was impressed that they do have some big boys on their roster, so they had some size there for sure. But what are your thoughts about the Patriots as far as what you've noticed? And in a similar situation, they're a team that has a first-year head coach.
Yeah, they're going to fire off the ball defensively and, try to fit their gaps and play well in space. They had a couple good athletes on the offensive side at receiver. And, got some big boys that, going to try to put hands on you and grab you and try to block you and do their job. So, got to kind of make sure they do some good stuff offensively with 2 back sets, three back sets, kind of getting into heavy sets and go spread. So they got their multi-formational. And so we just got to make sure we do our job aligning right all night and, getting the ball down on the ground. I want to see a clean, disciplined game of, everybody doing their assignment and then executing the job.
And with a short notice of the game being switched to Thursday, now you have Friday free, and you'd have you and your coaches would have a chance to do something like, I would say, scout Del City, but Del City's got a bye week. But have you made plans for your Friday now? Have you even had a chance to think about how you're going to spend one of your few free Friday nights this season?
Well, just found out at 1 o'clock, 12 o'clock that we were playing on Thursday.
Right.
So that shifted my focus into how we're going to get our kids prepared to play the Patriots on Thursday with practice structure, moving food around, for my Booster Club president, making sure transportation is set, make sure we got buses that are going to get us there on Thursday, and Suburbans and, SUVs. Everything is going to get us to the game, to even have an opportunity to compete. And, shout out to my secretary and, everybody, the coaching staff, the kids for adapting and just saying, okay, we're playing on Thursday. And so, I would imagine, once we get to that game and complete that game, we'll have some time to move forward to next week.
Okay, well, it's still just the beginning of the season. And so once again, a change. We see this every once in a while, maybe in 5A, where we have a Thursday game that wasn't originally scheduled. I think that happened 2 years ago with Del City, happened 3 years ago with El Reno. So here it is happening this year. Midwest City going to Putnam City West this Thursday. Please tune in. Again, we'll be there. We'll have our pregame coverage at 6:30 and the kickoff at 7 as the Bombers take on the Putnam City West Patriots. All right, Coach, thanks again very much for your time. And, again, look forward to that broadcast. And then next week when we will react to that broadcast and as Midwest City will be preparing for their Del City game, the biggest rival of the season. That's coming up. Thank you again for tuning in to the Midwest City Coaches Show on the Oklahoma Sports Network.
Thanks for watching this presentation of the Oklahoma Sports Network.